So yeah, these are the two graphics I just sent you. There's not that much different. I know you say that it looks like I did a lot. I really did not do that much to your graphic because I just have the video file. All I did was time remap things a little bit, so kind of see where things get faster and slower. And then I added a little tiny bit of rotation and a tiny bit of scale to do that squash and stretch, and then a little bit of overshoot on this bird when it hits the top. What I'm about to show you isn't going to be one-to-one to what you have, because I kind of had to compensate for rotation you already had on things, scale you already had on things, but I just kind of wanted to show you kind of my thought process behind this. So yeah, this is pretty simple. The squash and stretch, like I was saying, it comes straight up, and you kind of want to have this sense of movement, so adding a little bit of that squash on that ball just kind of pulls it up. The way I did this was just by animating the scale of this full comp. What you would do is either put a null object on and connect your shape layer to that, or just use the scale controls of that ball and animate them. And yeah, just unlink the scale, and then just kind of make the height higher and the width smaller. So that's how I did this. You see, like that was so there's the swash and stretch. For the top here, in your example, you had it just spin and then slowly ease into its final rotation. All I did was add a little bit of overshoot to this, which also in turn added a little bit of anticipation into where this pulls out. So on my example, you'll see you spin it open and you would have landed. I kept the rotation going a little bit and then eased back into your final rotation, which was 0%. So it just gets a little more like of a wiggle, like it kind of is landing in that spot. And then the last thing, which I didn't do because it's hard to explain or do in this video since everything is baked down, is you can then use this rotation to kind of as an anticipation for this white bar coming out. So you have this rotation kind of settle. You could then have this bird pull back a little bit, like this, while everything else is still horizontal and moving horizontally. And then settle down into its final position, just so you get this little bit of a tension, like it's pulling away from this white bar that's coming out of the other direction, and you get a counter motion. It'll add a little bit more interest, because when you look at this, everything is very horizontal, and the bird doesn't have much animation going on it, or any at all. It's just moving horizontally. So adding maybe a little bit of rotation with a pivot point kind of lower on the body, maybe pulling it back or pushing it forward, you may have to mess with it. It doesn't need to be much, but then as a pullback and then settle as the white bar settles out. And then you could do the same thing, that same kind of idea when it closes, is it adds a secondary motion to things. So you have the bird, and when it starts to close, maybe the head trails behind a tiny bit, so you add the rotation down here, and it just rotates out and then lands. So you get a kind of trailing effect, so it's you adding a little bit of rotation to your horizontal movement. And I can do another example if it'll help, but I hope that makes some sense. Yeah.